Today, Philip Botha will share insights on leadership training and coaching. And together we will reflect on how both helps us to become a better version of yourself. Hello, Philip.
Good morning, Michael.
So great to see you again.
I'm very happy to be here.
Last time when we were talking, we spoke more about your personal development and general aspects of leadership training and coaching. Today I would like to follow up with you on that and dive a little bit deeper into the hard facts of these two words. And let me start off by challenging you and ask you, so why leadership training and coaching at all?
Well, I believe that each one of us wants to be the best person that we can be, whether it's as a leader or whether it's as a person. And that is my experience as a coach and as a leadership trainer, that both of these help us to develop that.
And is that something that is it a personal belief, or is it something that you can kind of prove? Is there some science behind that?
Well, obviously I believe that. I also see that in my experience, how people shift, how people transform. But specifically, there have been many studies on coaching and the impact of coaching, as well as leadership training. If you look on the web, you will find many examples of the connection between emotional intelligence and leadership. And what these studies in general tell us, that if you are, as a leader, if you have a strong sense of emotional intelligence, that your productivity and performance of your team will be sort of between 15 to 25% higher than that of a leader who doesn't have strong emotional intelligence. Now, my personal take on that is that if we want to increase productivity, the two levers that we normally push is either we fire people, really harsh, or we cut costs. Now, both of those are really important tools to use, but we never think about the fact that actually there are other levers that we can use as well, and they work.
Yeah, it seems that emotional intelligence is one of the things at the core of that. Well, when I think about intelligence, that sounds like something that's genetically there. It's in your DNA. Can you develop your emotional intelligence?
Yes, you can. We talk about natural born leaders. Yes, there are people who are natural born leaders. We look at people who smile and we immediately react to them because a smile leads to a reaction. But as people, we have different backgrounds, we have different upbringings. So all of those, let's say, characteristics that we have, we can train and improve, because finally that's the impact that we have as people. I'll give you one example.
All right.
The very first coachee that I had, after about 6 weeks into the coaching program, I said to her, so what have you noticed? What changes have you noticed? And she said, I've noticed nothing. And my heart sank, because obviously, as a coach and as a new coach, you want to have an impact. And then she said, hold on. What I find strange is that the people I don't like are much nicer to me.
All right.
Now, did she change or did they change? All she was being much truer.
Now we have a situation of COVID and a lot of challenges around that. And one of the things that you can often hear is like talking about the values, beliefs, and behavioral patterns behind this is all good and nice when you are on calm sea, but when the storm is coming up, it may be one of the first things that you throw overboard. So the question I'm having is it really something that shows only in good times, or is it something that specifically can help you in challenging situations?
Well, from my own experience, I would definitely say it especially helps you in challenging times, because if you talk about those challenging times, the biggest impact that those challenging times have on us, it makes us feel less secure. That's how we show up. When we feel less secure, we start believing that our opinions are the truth. We start talking louder. We start being more authoritarian because we want to protect ourselves. Now, it's not conscious, it is subconscious. So what happens to us is how we react. And if you go and look at the phases of change as people move through phase, those curves, they're the same. And the first reaction is not with me. Instead of being open, okay, so what's the challenge here?
Yeah.
How can we work together? And why are we doing this? Where will this take us? So the insecurity, the fear, the vulnerability, that's what forces us to stop and say, no, I need to protect myself.
Here I would like to really go deeper, make this more specific. So when I mentioned a big overall challenge, I think there's also challenges on an everyday level that really is something you have to face as a leader, or if you want to be a leader. And from your own experience, as you mentioned before, can you just give an example? What's a typical challenge that you encounter?
Well, if I go back to when I was working in advertising, one of the challenges that I had was I had to work with the different departments in the agency. You have your creative department, your media department, all the different departments. Now, everybody needs to work together to be able to create the advertising product that we are going to sell to client. But it's not about selling. It's about delivering need satisfaction. But if everybody believes that what they do is the only thing that's important, they're never going to be able to do that.
I would like to interject and challenge you again here right now, because isn't that a contradiction what you said? It's not about selling, because the purpose of a company, whether it's large, a corporation or a small entity, is actually selling. That's how you survive, and that's the purpose of a company.
Sure, but selling is selling a product that delivers the needs of the client. If you go back into the 70s, I believe it was, in Japan, they had no marketing focus. They were just selling cars. And they had huge lots of unsold cars, which meant the only way that they were able to sell it was through selling on huge discounts. Now, in today's world, in a marketing world, we manufacture and we deliver what consumers want. Yes, we still sell, but the focus is not selling. So in an agency, to go back to my example, if you are just trying to sell the creative product, the advertising that you believe is right, that may not serve clients' needs. That may not address the needs of the consumer at the end of the day. If you don't listen to client, if you don't understand what their product is, you can't deliver the right product. You just listen to your own ego. Now, in an agency where you have all these strong departments and everybody's just doing what they believe is best, there is no coordination, there's no collaboration. And that's where leadership comes in, because you need to be able to make sure that everybody collaborates on delivering ultimately what is in client's business needs. That's leadership.
However, there are very successful marketing agencies. So are they so successful because they already incorporate that kind of leadership? Or is it they are very successful, it's undeniable, yet they could be even more successful?
Yes, they are successful, and yes, they could be even more successful, because in advertising, advertising is a skill. There are certain skills that you learn, that you develop, how to brief, how to develop creative, etc. But coming back to emotional intelligence, that still plays a role, because if you sit in an advertising briefing, and you are not listening to what client is telling you about their product, and you're just listening to your own voice, which we do most of the time, you listen to what you believe yourself. And you go away and you develop a product that you believe is right, but you haven't actually listened to what other people tell you. I'll give you another story. I once coached a senior advertising executive, and she was interviewing for a global role to head up the advertising agency network for a global client. And one of the things that we really focused on in the coaching was actually how to listen. Because listening is a really, really important skill. And this, for, I don't know why, but we really focused on that. And the final thing in the interview, she kept bringing back listening, focusing on what he's saying, and going back on that. And the client's final feedback to the agency and why they hired her is, I like her. I think she will really listen to what we say. Mm-hmm. We don't listen. We don't listen internally. We don't listen to clients. We don't listen to the consumer. We listen to ourselves. And that's a huge challenge that we need to overcome, to really listen.
And as a leadership trainer and as a coach, and we will come later into what's the real difference between the two, there are methods, tools,
absolutely,
stuff that you can give really at the hand of people then.
Absolutely. Listening is a skill that you can use. For me, one of the most important tools in listening is how to ask questions. You know, if you just take a simple test for yourself, and when you ask questions, just start counting. How often do you ask a yes/no question? Most of us ask yes/no questions. We don't realize that that's a huge different impact than if we ask open questions. Am I really curious about what the other person has to say, or am I asking a question so that I can talk about what I want to? Mm-hmm. So if you use those two tools really well, you can find out what you don't know, because you already know what you know.
That's one element now.
That's just one element,
right? And you just mentioned before that in the end, what you talk about is also called silos. That you have all these different departments or areas and subject matter experts, and everybody has their own beliefs and also their own justification why they are there. And one art of leadership is integrating that.
Yes.
Now you mentioned one example, which is listening. Can you give me another item that is really very key in becoming a leader that
absolutely
overcomes such challenges?
You know, you're in business as well. We will never have a situation where everybody lives in a state of harmony. For me, one of the most challenging situations is challenging conversations, especially if you have conflict in between different departments, because you always have difference of opinion, and differences of opinion very quickly turn into personal conflicts. If you don't know how to constructively lead a difficult conversation, that's really difficult. The interesting thing is that if you know how to lead a difficult conversation, not only do you bring things back to neutrality, but if you do it correctly, you can actually even rise above that and build real motivation and collaboration. Now, that's not just solving a problem, that's creating a positive. Mm-hmm. And that's where you come back to what I was talking about earlier, is you can build productivity, you can build performance if you know how to really use emotional intelligence.
That sounds almost too good to be true. So what I would like you to do now is, you mentioned you were in marketing advertising in your previous life or roles. Can you think of an example where you reacted in a certain way at that time, and on hindsight now with the experience that you have, how would that help you to become a better version of yourself, and how would you have reacted in a different way?
You know, when we are insecure, we want to protect ourselves. Okay, so there's one example that has stayed with me, and it's very simple. You know, I was going to go on holiday, and before the holiday, we did a media strategy for a client, and then they wanted a second version, which doubled the budget. So now here are two versions of the same strategy with two vastly different budgets. And finally, the original with the lower budget was approved. Put that into the system, and I went on holiday. When I came back from holiday, wow, media had booked the higher version, and it was already running. client didn't want to pay. Now, here is a huge cost. What was my immediate reaction? To protect myself. Natural.
Mm.
Now, yes, there was a communication problem internally, very clear, not my issue. But my first focus was on protecting myself, not on how do we deal with this for the agency. But if I really look back, is if I had the training that I have now, and you really focus on emotional intelligence, it's my responsibility to ensure that have I communicated really clearly? Have people really understood what has been communicated? And have I double checked that? Because that's really where the increase in productivity and performance comes in, because of the way that you communicate, because of the way that you work together, because that's really where collaboration comes in. But if you're in a silo system where everybody just looks after themselves, that's where those misunderstandings come in, because yes, of course I know what to do.
Yeah. Isn't it then enough to read about all these subjects like emotional intelligence, because you mentioned beforehand that there's a lot of scientific background, a lot of studies on that matter. So in other words, where's the value add of doing training, coaching?
Well, it's all about outcome. I'm sure you've been in a situation where you have an annual review and your boss says, well, I don't like this and this and this, you should change. And then you sit there, oh shit, how do I do that? Maybe you have intention to, but you have no idea. So my perspective is that if you really want to shift behavior, it's not that easy. You can have the intention, but just the intention won't bring it. You can have the information, which is what a book gives you, that won't do it. I really believe that only if you've reflected on it, if you've experienced, what I mean with that, practiced something and experienced the outcome of that practice and practiced it enough so that you experience the outcome and the different impact of that, only then can you really start seeing what a different impact this new behavior has. And now that you've already started wearing this new set of clothes, now you are able to start implementing it. Then it works. But without that whole experiential element, it won't. And then reflecting on it, that's where the change comes in. Because now you have a choice. I can do it like this, or I can do it like that.
So that's in the end sounds like really it's not a fast thing. It's not like I read it, I got it, I changed my behavior. This takes time. And my last question then for today is, if you put this together with a fast-paced industry such as marketing, advertising, where you have a lot of changes, even maybe teams change quickly, fairly, you maybe have people who are not on a payroll, but maybe you work with freelancers, and on the other end, you have that long-term process. How does that fit together?
Well, at the end of the day, it's about effectiveness and efficiency. There's this wonderful German word, Aktionismus. In today's fast-paced industry, because we need to be fast and agile, what do? We jump and we start doing without thinking. Now, maybe it would have taken 5 minutes longer in the beginning to really think of things through and to say, well, here are the different options, here are the different perspectives. But now we make a conscious decision about what would be the right thing to do, what would be the right approach to do that. Instead, we jump in and we start doing, and then in the middle we have to stop because we made the wrong decision in the beginning. So what's more effective? Sometimes the slower start leads to a better outcome. Most of that is a result of emotional intelligence, because I'm thinking things through. I'm thinking through different perspectives. I'm thinking through different decision-making scenarios, and I'm listening to people about what they think about it. That leads to a better outcome. But originally, it's my choice as a leader. How do I lead this process?
And that sounds like nice concluding words. So if anybody would like to find out more about the topic or about you, where can that person look it up?
Well, I suppose the easiest would be to find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Obviously, Philip Botha, or on my website, searchlight.guru. That's it.
So what we will do, we'll just put your information underneath this video. How you find it?
I don't see anything.
Well, we'll be there. So,
Okay.
thank you very much, Philip.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Very nice interview.
Okay.
See you soon.
Bye.
If you like this video, leave us a comment and click on that like button so we can continue to create content that you like to see.